I've been container gardening this year, but I want to go bigger. Need to go bigger with the price of everything. My goal is to grow as much as possible. That's a good goal. But a lot of that can still be done with containers or raised beds. Let me show you. This one here is my first garden bed, and it started out as just some wood slats, and I built some soil up and everything, but it's evolved over time. Now I'm using cinder blocks for a couple of reasons. One is that wood rots over time. These don't. Another reason is you can grow things actually in the holes, and they do very well. They stay insulated. Now, inevitably somebody's going to tell you that cinder blocks are made with toxic chemicals, to which you can tell them no, they're not anymore, because I get that a lot. And the reason why I recommend the container gardens and the raised beds for a couple of reasons. One thing is you hardly ever have to do any weeding, and the weeding that you do is very simple. Another reason is if you use a tiller or a shovel or something like that, you're messing with the microbes in the soil, and you're probably stirring up more weed seeds, which is going to be a problem later for you. So whenever you can, it's much better to build up the soil than to dig into it. One of my favorite ways to do this is called lasagna gardening. There are a lot of videos on this, but essentially what you do is you just cover your grass up with loads of cardboard. On top of the cardboard, you put something else on top of it like hay or leaves or something like that. Then you put some moisture-holding garden soil on top. I know a lot of people think that that's expensive to do, but it really isn't. There are some cheaper ways to do this. Typically, I get a couple of bags of sphagnum peat moss or cocoa coir. This stuff, you just add water to it and it expands a lot. That's going to be your most expensive thing, but you don't have to use a lot of it. In addition to that, I use composted manure and pine bark. Basically, you're just wanting it to be loose and loamy, and when you hold it together, it kind of makes a clump like that. That way you know that you're holding water or retaining water. And I should also add that this is kind of a one-time expense. It's usually when you're setting up these beds that you have to spend the money on this, but it works for many, many, many seasons. Now, if you want to, you can add some of your native soil in with that. You just have to make sure that it's as weed-free as possible. Now on top, I like to put more hay or leaves or chicken bedding whenever they're through with it. If you have chickens, I highly recommend you clean out their coops and put it directly in your garden beds. It makes for some really nice soil over time. Now, all that being said, I do grow some things in the ground just because they do well in the ground. This massive dead pile was loofah this year, and they grew a lot of loofahs. You can either harvest them early and eat them, they're kind of like zucchini, or you can just let them grow until they dry out like this and they become a loofah sponge. You just peel the outer casing and you got a sponge in there. Oh, and corn. That's another thing that grows really well in the ground. Just make sure that you're doing multiple rows of it at a time. That way they cross-pollinate. If you have hard soil, a lot of things like okra, garlic, and a lot of herbs, they will still grow in that. Fruit trees, whatever grows best in your area, get those trees and plant them anywhere you can on your land. If you get an abundance, freeze them, dehydrate them, can them. And if anybody's interested in learning about garden tubs and wicking tubs, let me know. But if you really just want to grow in ground, that's fine. If you want to till and everything, it takes longer for the soil to recover. But I'm not going to discourage you from growing anything at any time. Anyway, I don't want this to run too long, so if anybody has any other questions or wants me to make a video on anything else having to do with gardening, let me know.